Hello world. We are warm and dry and fuzzy in our apartment and watching it come down. So this is from the inside looking out. It's about the slowdown maybe for the day. I think tomorrow, New Year's, is supposed to be a break and then we go back into more of it for a solid week. But this guy won't mind. This guy I don't think will mind. This guy I'm pretty sure won't mind. This guy won't mind. Those guys won't mind. My little maple forest won't mind. These cypress trees will not mind. And also, if you look, you can kind of see the right side of center is damp and watered, and the left side of center is just more damp, right? So what I'm saying is there's a zone. My window is dry. My table is dry. This tree is not dry. It got watered 2 days ago, and the humidity is so high it will not dry out. The loud crash noise you hear is when I try to walk by the tiny table with a watering can underneath it that always gets bumped. So as far as things go, the water will, after this experiment, in the last 48 hours, in this deluge of water, which we are having what they call an atmospheric river. It's a funny word for rain, a lot of rain. When you look at it on the radar, it does kind of look like a river running, and the air is just so thick with water that 100% humidity almost doesn't sound right. But this is the look from the other way. The trees are going to be glad to have gotten water. I don't think they're going to get enough to uproot up here. But down there, our water was deep enough that I was concerned about outlets and conduit along the pathways because water is higher at this property than I've ever seen it, and I don't know if they ever accounted for it being that tall. So that's probably something to think about. But here, my little drip trays, these are just little pans of water. Simply P seems to be pretty much on the good side of the water part. It's one of the first trees that wouldn't want a ton of water, but it's just to the left of good. And to that extent, this is probably the last tree that's a pine that I actually watered because it stayed dry. Since moving all of these guys back here, I believe, like this tray is not wet, but this tree hadn't dried out. The ponderosa is probably good. These little pines back here that were placed back in the dry, like this one also, you can see that alkadama is still dark and wet looking. It hasn't gotten any more water that I know of, but it just simply will not. Water it every 2 days. In the winter, it's becoming watering it every 3 days because there's so much moisture in the air that it won't move. I was worried about this thing actually drowning in the position that it was in next to me. But as you can see, the table is dry. If the air would allow that water to evaporate off, or would allow the needles to transpire some water, then we could actually move that. That would be a good thing. So I think my plan of the evasive action, you can see my little Japanese pine here. The substrate on that on the top looks to be dry, and the substrate here looks to be in good shape. So it's kind of like I said, that dividing line. Now, if we had higher winds, all bets would be off. But so far, this has been a constant downpour, and down being kind of a key word there. So that worked. That little bit, I feel better. I don't feel better about the amount of water that's still on these trees. Tom from Grow and Clip Bonsai for Seniors suggested that I might go with a dry rope on wet substrate called it a wick, but I know what it would be like if, for instance, I were to take a piece of shoestring that's a mile long, like from a high top Nike, because those are cotton, and lace it around the top here. Maybe push it down with a little staple or something, and then run the other end down here. That cotton would soak up any excess moisture on the top of that soil so fast that it would wick it to the parts of the cotton next to it. Then, if said cotton line ran down to the ground and we're sitting in a pie tin, that would have a wick slash siphon system that you could use to pull water. I know exactly what he was saying when he said it. It's not a bad idea. Maybe overkill. I don't know. California, the old saying it never rains in California. It pours. But yeah. So maybe that's overkill, or maybe that's the new world we live in, and I will have to consider. I used to use the wick system in an opposite way. Say, for instance, if I took that if I took that watering can and put it up there on the rail and ran a rope in it and ran a wick out of it, I could put a plant in that chair with that watering can up there and that string laced around the trunk of a tree, and then I could probably disappear for a few days, knowing that would actually work like a slow watering system, or like a soaker hose, a tiny little soaker hose, making sure that, and if you were to lift up that little piece of string, like a Nike shoestring is what I found worked well when I was a kid, you would see that it's wet underneath there, and if you scratch the top of the soil underneath where it's wet on the soil, you see that spreads out and continues to, it's a little bit constant, and that would eventually drain that tank, probably no more by, I would say probably more by the wick than evaporation, but some of each, so it's not total. You're not totally going to give all of that to your trees, but I've seen people do that when they had to disappear for a little while. Anyway, that's going to be just a little bit of a follow-up to the video where we talked about evasive action for the amount of water we've had. Now, we are actually having a water event. I'm sure the news is probably full of flash floods, and maybe a little, down trees and all of that stuff. I think we've already had some sort of accident here. I heard from the maintenance men, so I don't know any more about it than that. But yeah, so yeah, water is the deal, and we are getting some. So, but as far as the actions that we had taken to preserve our trees, I think we're going to be on the safe side of dry for those guys that need to be dried out, and we're going to be on the loving it side of rain for those. Now, I mean, eventually, this dawn redwood would probably be the next one to be concerned about. They like their feet wet, like they say, but that doesn't mean that you can drown them. It's been, at some point, if I were to bring it to stay here, that would probably, not even think about doing that before that becomes an issue. Like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. We will do something. I've got a plan to do a video tonight. I would love to do a live video drop on New Year's Eve. I simply do not have the bandwidth to do that when I have more bandwidth than I have now. My internet here next to the water is not everything that I would hope, but I guess that's a hell of a problem to have. I can still watch the things I want to watch. It just takes longer for me to upload videos, and if I ever tried to pull off something live, that would just, from what I've seen, on better days than this, that was still a choppy mess. Probably not worth doing. So tonight I probably will do a video though, and you can expect for that to drop in the next day or so, whenever it finally get carved out of the little YouTube machine. And I appreciate you. Frida appreciates you. And thank you so much for watching. Happy New Year.